Well, if they can do that, I wanted to reimagine the 911 for the most crazy utility, trailer park, person who should have bought a pickup truck way I could. I'm an engineer. I specialize in making products robust, and I have these different methodologies I do with my customers, whether they're doing aircraft or automotive or even robotics. And when you're designing a product, you set out and you try and figure out the use cases. The use case is that it's going to be used by this person in this way, in this environment. And usually you commonly do 3, right? And sometimes they're low, medium, high. Sometimes they're different. This is going to be in the mountains and this is going to be at the ocean, and they're very different. Well, maybe the extreme you go with 6 use cases. So I came up with this idea, use case 7. What's the most ridiculous way we can use your product? Let's explore that. And there's a couple benefits. And so what are some examples? Well, that classic, the guy who takes his lawnmower and tries to, do his hedges with it, right? And ends up hurting himself or something. And so some of the benefits of doing this are, 1, sometimes you find out that this crazy idea you thought actually has a few components of it that really should be in some of your base use cases. A second is, sometimes, you can obviously find ways to make your product more robust against those in very simple ways. And you might find new markets too. And also there's, of course, a lot of times those things, like I said, with the lawnmower, you can mitigate legal lawsuits too. So I wanted to put my money where my mouth is. I'm an epic Porsche fan. So one of the reasons why I love them is because the engineering is phenomenal. I always feel like the engineers win the arguments in the Porsche conference room. Somebody else is saying we need to save a few pennies. That's not happening. Somebody else is saying we need to go to market quicker. That's not happening. And engineering says we're going to do this because it's the best way to do it. And when I grew up, I had on my wall the Porsche 911s, but the Porsche 959, which it was one of the most amazing supercars that came out at the time because it truly was a supercar. They designed it to be a car that had an insanely high top speed, phenomenal sports car. But then they proved how good they are at engineering. And they put a little bit of suspension lift, threw on a few mud tires, and went and won the Paris to Dakar rally, right? So they showed we didn't just engineer an amazing supercar, we engineered an amazing car. We've taken it and we're beating your specialty designed off-road vehicles. That's how good it's engineered. So that inspired me. So one of my favorite 911s is the 997 for the modern era. I start to lose a little bit of my passion as they get newer and newer because I feel like you're starting to dilute some of the purity. But the 997 is still phenomenal. So I said, okay, what can I do here? So I went out and I bought a 2006 997 with 25,000 miles on it. Ridiculously low mileage. What I wanted to do is see if I could replace the utility that I had a Honda Cross Tour wagon. So it's kind of a big wagon, crossover type thing, all-wheel drive, some ground clearance. And of course, being me, I pretty much abused that thing too and used it to extremes. I put a hitch on the Cross Tour, and I had made this kind of T-frame, and I could carry my 13-foot catamaran sailboat on top. And I would do all kinds of other things that were either appropriate or marginally appropriate to it. So what I decided is I'm going to buy this 997. I'm going to sell the Honda, which is the family car, which the family was not happy about. And I'm going to set challenges to where this has to satisfy all the criteria. So one of the first is designing and installing a 2-inch hitch on it. I've set a goal for towing a certain amount of weight. The thing is my girls, my teens in the back seat, it has to be able to satisfy long road trips in the snow. So we took it skiing. I put the snow tires on it, and I even did some great drifting with it. The radio didn't go loud enough to go over everybody screaming, but that's fine. I'm going to be doing all these different challenges, but the ultimate is I am going to have this catamaran sailboat on top to take, to the ocean and back. And so far, the experiment's been really interesting. It's been interesting to see what it can and can't take. And, one of my more recent ones is also to do, to some degrees, poor maintenance. I want to see what happens with when users won't do what they're supposed to. So I ran the back tires down to the cords and did a 10-hour round trip. I wanted to see with regard to handling and other things it could take, what would happen. And that was fine. I think we see with the 911s how you see the Safari builds, you see the RWB builds. It's really one of those platforms that has become this canvas for so many people to do these interpretations of by simple modifications and how diverse the vehicle is. You know, that's kind of my profession. Take everything and see how extreme we can go with it. So if Singer can reimagine the 911 for the purist, you know, they grabbed what were the perfect elements from each year from 1973 to 1989, and they very surgically extracted each part of it and put it together and created the ultimate 911 for the pure essence of it. Well, if they can do that, I wanted to reimagine the 911 for the most crazy utility, trailer park, person who should have bought a pickup truck way I could. So it wasn't just the utility of the car in the sense of what it could carry or pull. It had to be able to still serve as a family car. And we had some pessimism on this. When I told my daughter I was getting rid of our beloved family wagon and replacing it with the 911, her response was, "Dad, I don't think you've thought this through. I play a tenor sax. Where is that going to fit?" Because she's experienced my 79 911, which of course that's been a challenge, you know, when we have to go somewhere with that, and it does get stuffed in. But I said, nope, we're all going on this little dad's experiment, and they're used to that kind of thing. I did think about it. Was it, you know, because I have had them, they actually do like riding in the back of the 79. One of them she calls it the roller coaster womb, because you're in their back, it's tight, and, you know, they enjoy it. But that's short trips. That's not like real, you know, really going somewhere. But the 997, they extended the wheelbase by 3 inches. So actually the back seats aren't that bad, and they are pretty comfortable. And so my girls are teens, and, you know, they fit back there fine. So that was part of the challenge, was can it work as a true family car? So now, of course, there's the cargo problem, but I fixed that too. So I designed and welded up a roof carrier, an aluminum roof carrier that's always up there, like you'd have on a safari car. And I have a couple of strap down systems. One is a netting system and the other is actual straps. I got a town dump sticker for the car, and I go to the dump. It's the only Porsche 911 there with garbage on the roof, stacked high. I've carried pallets on there. So I used to, with the other car, if I saw people getting rid of pallets, I'd grab them because they're awesome for the fire pit, you know, in the back patio. So I was like, well, that's what I agreed to. I was like, this thing has to replace all utility. So I've stacked 6 wooden pallets on top, and no problem. We throw kayaks up there, no problem. You know, it had to do that thing with the long journey and in the snow. And I set a requirement of at least an hour out and an hour back, and everybody's satisfied. And amazingly, it's done it. And I think they've even come to like it a little bit. So, you know, what are we learning from this? What if Porsche had hired me to do the Use Case 7 experience? What could have come out of it? Well, let's roll back in time. What are some things that could have come out of it? One could be, well, you take a 911 and you're trying to add all this extra utility to it. This could have very well been the inspiration that led to the Panamera, right? Because what is the Panamera? It's almost a Honda Cross Tour to some degree. But the idea of the Panamera, I believe, I don't know, is that when you're sitting in the driver's seat, you feel like you're in a 911. But you can have the family comfortably and you have utility. They made a true shooting brake. So to some degree, if they'd taken the 911 and done an experiment like this kind of Use Case 7 idea, what is a Porsche lover? Somebody who wants to drive a Porsche. They don't want to drive a station wagon to work, right? And they don't have the opportunity to buy several cars. And Porsche has lost a lot of sales over the years because of that, because they're always a pure sports car company, right? 80s, 90s, all the young men, teenagers lusted after 911s. And then when they finally had enough money that they could buy one middle-aged, they had to spend their money on, you know, either a minivan or whatever, and then it had to be an extra car, so it again went out of reach, right? So Porsche very smartly said, wait a minute, the Cayenne was born, right? Let these people have their Porsche and their family, you know, utility needed as well. And then they went another step, right, in the Panamera as a wagon, which said, okay, the Cayenne, yes, we made a version that goes 200 miles an hour and does all these amazing things, but it's still, you're not in a sports car. You know, I think that what they did is they were like, you know, this driver wants to feel like they're in a sports car, but what if we made it so that they could make the case their daughter doesn't respond with, hey, Dad, I don't think you thought this through when you bring it home, right? So to some degree, this Use Case 7 type exercise could have led to that, and maybe some derivative of it was there.
Premier Financial Services has been a sponsor of the VINwiki YouTube channel for the last 4 years, and we love them for that, but we also love their Simple Lease. It's one of the most powerful tools in the world of exotic car financing. It allows you to minimize your payment, minimize your down payment, have the flexibility to move in and out of cars, and take all of the advantages that are available to a leasing structure. So check them out at the link in the description below. We appreciate their continued support of VINwiki, and since you heard about them last here on the channel, they were actually acquired by First Financial Bank USA. And what does that mean for you? It means they're now larger than any of the other exotic car banks you may have heard of. They can move faster, buy more deals, and give you even better customer service. So thank them for their continued support of VINwiki and use them as your tool to buy your dream car soon.